Section 3, we're going to be talking about the most common ways that HIV is spread. And we've already seen from the demonstration that it is spread through bodily fluids. And so can you guys tell me what are some of the body fluids that can contain HIV that would cause HIV to be spread?
Blood.
First one's blood. Good. Anybody else? Another one?
Sweat.
Sweat. That's a body fluid. Write it down. Another one?
Saliva.
Saliva. Anybody else?
Sexual fluids.
Sexual fluids. Anything else? One more?
Breast milk.
Breast milk, exactly. Mother's breast milk. So out of these body fluids that we've written up here, which do you think are the most dangerous ones?
Sexual fluids.
Sexual fluids is one of the very dangerous ones, yes. Somebody else?
Blood.
Blood, yes. And what about the others? Do you think that sweat or saliva are... Okay, they claim that there is HIV in sweat and saliva, but not to an extent that it's likely to infect somebody else. So you needn't be too concerned about getting somebody else's perspiration on you or getting somebody else's saliva on you. You're not likely to get HIV from those things. How about breast milk? Do you think that is that a likely way for somebody to become infected? Yes, it is. Okay, so young babies have a very high possibility of becoming infected from their mother's milk if they're feeding directly from their mother. But tears and saliva and sweat are not considered dangerous fluids. So there's no need to worry about people. There's no need to worry about people crying on your shoulder and getting you infected. So because HIV is also in mother's breast milk, it's quite possible that mothers can infect their children by feeding them with breast milk. So we have another key concept here, which is, I'll read it first and you can read it with me. If infected blood or infected sexual fluids can get into another person's body, the person can become infected with HIV. So read it with me. If infected blood or infected sexual fluids can get into another person's body, the person can become infected with HIV. So I've heard it said, and some people believe that if somebody who's infected with HIV has sex with a virgin, they can become cured from the HIV. Have any of you heard that?
Yes.
Yes, somebody has. But the reality is that's not true. And I'm going to do a little demonstration for you just to show you that that's not true. If we take our glasses of water again, you can see the contaminated one is yellow color and the uncontaminated one is clear. And so the clear one representing a virgin. And so if we pour some of the water out of the clear one into the colored one, did we see any change in the colored liquid? Stayed the same, right? So the infection is still there. So if we reverse that and pour some of the colored liquid into the clear liquid, what has happened now? Right, the one that was not infected has become infected. So it's a myth that if you have sex with a virgin, you will be cured from HIV. That's not true. So now we're going to look at the different activities that could cause HIV infection. And the first one is sexual activity. Most of the world's AIDS cases have been created as a result of sexual activity. And so the virus is not discriminatory. The virus doesn't know what age you are, what your nationality is, what color you are, if you're male or female. It doesn't discriminate. It affects all people that it gets in contact with. We have the next key concept is the most common way people get HIV is from sexual relations. Read it with me. The most common way that people get HIV is from sexual relations. Thank you. Okay, second method is mother to child transmission. So how do you think that can happen from a mother to a child? There's different stages at which that can happen. Anybody got any ideas?
Nursing.
From nursing, we've already spoken about that. From drinking the mother's milk, that's true. Any other time? Through birth. That's good. And another one? Okay, possibly also in the womb, although it's probably unlikely. That's probably an unlikely way, but the most likely is probably through the birth process and through mother's milk, feeding on mother's milk. So the next key concept is women who are pregnant should seek voluntary counseling and testing. Read it with me. Women who are pregnant should seek voluntary counseling and testing. Okay, the third method is through circumcision. Circumcision, initiation ceremonies, and body piercing. And so how do you think that happens? So just think about the way that you would do circumcision, initiation ceremonies and body piercing. How do you think that happens doing those activities?
Maybe a dirty knife.
Maybe a dirty knife, yeah. Any instrument that is used for doing one of these things, if it gets used on another person without being properly sterilized, that's how the HIV infection can be transferred to another person. So the next one is, number 4 is blood transfusion. This used to be a big problem in the early days of HIV before they realized how it lived in the body, where it lived in the body, and how it got transmitted. Once they figured out that it lives in the blood, they're now much more careful about blood transfusion, blood that they use in that process, and they test it very thoroughly to make sure that it's not infected before giving it to somebody else. So that shouldn't be a problem anymore because they do test it thoroughly, but if you do get infected blood, that can cause a transmission. And then the final one, number 5, is injection needles, either for taking medication, or if you are using needles while abusing drugs. If you're doing intravenous drug use, that is a way in which needles can transfer the virus between people. And so typically drug users are not careful about those kind of things. When they're sharing their drugs and sharing needles, they're probably in some kind of a drug-induced stupor and not aware of what they're doing and not careful about making sure that they clean the needle before somebody else uses it. So that's another way that HIV can be easily passed between people by sharing needles and drug activities. So even injections with medicine, if needles are shared and if they're not properly sterilized, there could be traces of blood left on the needle, especially if it's done very soon after somebody else has used the needle, that can be transferred that way also. And then finally, there's another way that's very popular these days that causes a needle to break your skin. Can anybody think what that might be? We use needles to make neat patterns on our body, right? We call that tattooing. Yes, exactly. Again, people that are in the tattoo business are probably not as careful as what doctors are about making sure that the needles that they're using for that purpose are properly cleaned. So that is another method that is that can be dangerous and that can cause the HIV virus to be spread as well.